Phil, I really appreciate that really way too nice intro. See, what I like to do is keep expectations really low. And then people don't, but I really, really honestly appreciate the invitation to be here. I honestly, I regard it as an honor to be asked to do anything in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Phil had said, hey man, your toolboxes. And I normally do, you know, when I'm doing a Zoom meeting, I'm at my house in my office and I have a toolbox in there. I can't use it very well, but I have, but I have it. And so the last two places that I've spoken, I spoke out, there's this really wonderful guy, Carl M., who lives out in Covina, California, and he very graciously asked me to speak out at his home group. And I got there and there were like these heroes of mine in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? There was like Bill C. from like LA, and there was this, you know, my sponsor was there, and I was overwhelmed, you know? And so I started thinking, whenever we start thinking that is probably not a great idea. Okay. And I started thinking, you know, I just need to be more serious. That what kind of wackadoodle craziness, you know? And so I was, and you know, I don't know. I try not, my sponsor tells me not to judge the speaker. So I try not to judge the speaker. But afterward, I just thought, you know what, Barclay, just, you know, be you, whoever is there. I think, anyway, so hopefully I'll get to that. I gotta tell you, I never really know what I'm gonna say. I know that there are tent poles that I talk about almost every time, but I really do try and just turn that over to God and let God say whatever it is he wants to say through me and get out of the way. And if I can do that, it normally goes well. And sometimes my ego gets the best of me, like happened over, but anyway, so last night I was supposed to be speaking for this lady down in Houston, and it was at home, and she said, here's Barclay, and I started to talk and everybody's screen went blank. I went, where did everybody go? What's going on? And apparently my Wi-Fi at home is really screwy. So I ended up just going, okay, hi everybody, I'm Barclay and I'm it didn't go so well. So I'm here at school and there's no toolbox that I can't use, but I gotta tell you, I'm very excited to be here, quite honestly. Hopefully I'll talk to you about my transition into teaching that happened several years ago, and we'll see. But anyway, just know that I love what I do, and I feel like I make a little bit of a difference every day. And that's a very cool feeling. That was a long intro, huh? I'm Barclay. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 1st of 1990, which I used to joke was like a New Year's resolution gone horribly awry. And I remember the first meeting. I didn't go to AA on January 1st. I had my last drink on, and this is something that came to me. Here's really kind of I want to qualify, but I don't want to spend too much time drunk because I'm a big fan of telling the adventures, you know, and in the reading that we do, it says our personal adventures before and after make clear, right? And that's the way I like to talk. I fell in love with alcohol sometime in 1971, 1972, 2, somewhere in there. I was 11 years old, and I got my hands on, and some of you may remember this, I got my hands on a bottle of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. Anybody remember Boone's Farm Oh, yeah. If you've never heard of it, you're probably lucky. But Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill, they called it wine. even though it had really never seen a grape before. And I don't think it had never, but it didn't have grapes in it. I don't think it didn't have actual strawberries in it. But one thing it had in it is it had alcohol in it. And man, when that alcohol hit bottom and I finished that bottle off, I got that magic that we all get, you know? And I just remember going, you know, and I was okay. I was okay. And you were okay, right? And 5th grade was okay, right? It was like life was good. Life was good. And from that time, and I'm from this little town outside of Nashville called Mount Juliet. It's Mount Juliet, and if you're from there, it's Mount Juliet. If you're not from there, it's Mount Juliet. But I'm not going to say that I stumbled all over the streets of Mount Juliet as an 11-year-old kid, but every time I could get my hands on a bottle of something, I got it. And my dad and stepmom used to go out of town fairly regularly. I was the youngest of 3 sons. I never really I kind of go all over the place, but I hope I get some kind of message across. I come from a family of 5 people. Alcoholism has killed 3 of the 5 of us. There are 2 of us left. And we are both in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't think that that's just some kind of wacky coincidence. I know in the bottom of my heart that the reason that I'm sitting here tonight is because I stumbled into Alcoholics Anonymous, and was desperate enough to do the stuff that you told me to do, even though I absolutely knew in the bottom of my heart, this is stupid. It was like you look up, I almost pointed to there's no steps up there. But you look at these steps up on the wall, right? And they have nothing to do with anything. And when you walk in here at first, and I remember thinking, well, isn't that just cute? That's just quaint. And there's that God word. They keep mentioning that God word. And then there's like amends. I know what that means, but no, thank you. But I was desperate enough to do what you guys told me to do. And that was not on January 1st of 1990, but I quit December 31st I had my last drink December 31st of 1989. I was watching Dick Clark, do the ball drop in New York. And it was like, it's midnight there, but it was 11 o'clock in Nashville. And I watched the ball drop. And I was thinking about this the other day. I started out the 90s in Times Square, watching the ball drop, drunk out of my gourd, right? And that was like the beginning of the 80s, right? And then by the end of the 80s, I was sitting in my chair that I'd been sitting in for about 3 years. Just sitting there. What I did, here was by the time I got to AA, here was my daily routine. Okay. I'd get up in the morning. I would try and figure out, I was married. I had 2 small kids. I would try and figure out what I had fought with my wife about. I knew she was angry at me, right? I never went to sleep. I passed out. I'd wake up, I'd try to figure out what we were angry at each other about, and then I would get in my stupid truck and I'd go to this stupid job that I had, right? And I would try and not go to lunch because I knew if I went to lunch, I'd probably end up, maybe having a beer. And if I had a beer, I wouldn't go back to work. So, and then I would come home, and on the way home, I would steal normally, or we used to call it wahooing because sounds much better than stealing. We would wahoo beer. It's like wahoo, pick up a couple of 12 packs of wahoo and run out of the store. And I don't want, yeah, I did. I lived to drink. If you would have asked me at that time if I was living to drink, I would have said, no, dude, I've got all kinds of stuff going on. Bang, zoom, pow, I'm doing great, right? Because I wasn't homeless. I had a beat up truck. We had a beat up car. I had a house. Actually, I rented a house from my brother. And, and I knew that alcoholics didn't look like me, but I also knew that something was wrong, man. Something was wrong. And then I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, I guess I'm sober, so let's go. Okay. I will tell you a few qualifying stories, okay? Just a couple. I'm going to take this jacket off because I'm hot and I'm sweating, okay? I hope that doesn't offend anybody. And I notice I got a big dot right there on my forehead. Okay, so anyway. So, when I was around 14, 15 years old, I realized that my father was a veterinarian, right? My father was a veterinarian. And back then, there were no federal, there wasn't a whole lot of federal oversight or anything like that. And when you're a veterinarian, you have a lot of dog dope, okay? And I have done more dog dope, I can almost guarantee, than anybody in the room, okay? I've done puppy uppers and doggy downers and kitty quaaludes, and just I've done a buttload of dog dope, okay? Literally sometimes buttload, but I will say I have been worm-free since 1976. I'm proud to say that, right? And I love anything that will make me veer off from where I am right now. I like to drink. I liked to drink. I guess I still like to drink. If I were to drink, I don't know. But anyway, this is the way I like to drink. I remember I was working, and this is probably when I was 15 or 16 or something like that. And this is when it was working. Okay. This is when it was good. We were working on a float, like the homecoming float, right? And somebody's found a bottle of their parents, a bottle of warm vodka. Warm vodka. Yeah. And so we're passing around this bottle of warm vodka, and I just got hammered. I mean, and that's the way I like to drink. I like to drink. And quite honestly, I used to be a lot of fun. I was a lot of fun right up until the point where I would vomit on you. And then I wasn't quite as much fun, right? And so anyway, I'm just hammered out of my gourd. I'm too young to drive. So this friend of mine's mother came to pick us up, and I'm in the back seat. And remember that feeling that you would get, like when you knew there's gonna be some puking happening, you get that watery thing going on, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm just like, oh God. And his mom needed to take me home, and she needed to take his girlfriend home. And I thought, man, I hope she takes me home first. And the last thought that I really remember is she turned to take his girlfriend home for us. Uh-oh. I was sitting there like this, and suddenly she said, "Is somebody sick?" And what I didn't even realize is I had gone, and I mean, just blown puke all over this poor woman's car. It was like, a sprinklers. I mean, just whoosh all over the place, all over the place. And you better pull over. And she pulled over, and I'm out on Mount Juliet Road just going, I was puking up stuff. Crayons I'd eaten in third grade. I mean, it was nasty. It was just nasty. And that's the way I like to drink. I enjoy drinking until the bitter, bitter end. I haven't told this lately, so what the hell? What the heck? What the heck? Anybody ever wait tables? Anybody ever wait tables at all? Anybody work in restaurants? And I can't really see there you go, Pat. There you go. Isn't waiting tables like the best job for a drunk? Right? You wake up at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you got a hangover and you're going, oh, okay, but it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You get into work around 3, you do, roll up all your silverware. You start waiting tables around 5, you start making cash money, you get off by, you're like by 9, you're feeling better. At 10 o'clock, you get off, you got big wads of cash in your hands, right? And then you wake up the next morning or afternoon and you got like $2 in your hands, right? You go, oh, hey! So anyway, I waited tables for like 6 years. And I used to, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. But for years, I used to smoke the marijuana. Okay. And I don't know why, because you don't know me, but I promise you, I just like to talk. I enjoy talking, right? And when I smoke pot, I would go, I just about 95% of the time, I would just get really like, paranoid, right? So this one night I'm waiting tables and it's a really slow night, and they said, "Hey, Barclay, we're closing your station." And I have all these voices in my head, right? I've got like, I've got this girl, this junior high school girl named Natalie, who all she ever says is, "Nobody likes you. You're stupid. Everybody hates you. They're going to find out about you," right? And I've got this colonel who's like going, "What the hell is going on around here?" And I've got this dude who it's like, ooh, I got an idea. and dude spoke up. And dude said, "Ooh, I got an idea." And he really only has one idea, but he has it a lot. He goes, "Let's go outside and let's go smoke a big bowl of dope. And then we'll come back in, we'll get their ticket, and we'll leave and go drinking." And I'm like, "Dude, that's a very, very good idea. That's a very good idea." So I go outside and I smoke this big bowl of marijuana. And and I just, it was, so I go back in, and not only have those people not left, but they had a little rush and they seated me, right? And there was like this guy, and I don't know if anybody remembers this, but remember leisure suits? Remember leisure suits, right? There's a guy had a leisure suit. His wife had this great big 60s hair. And I just went, ooh. So I kind of go up to the table. "Hi, I'm Barclay. I'll be your waiter this evening. Can I get anything for you to drink?" And so I take the ladies' drink order, because I'm right. I know ladies go first. I need some money to go drinking. And I'm turning to take dude's drink order. And And I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the lady has pulled out a cigarette. You used to be able to smoke cigarettes in restaurants. You could smoke cigarettes anywhere. You could smoke cigarettes at the gas station. You could smoke cigarettes in church. You just, everybody smoked, and all God's children smoked, right? And so I noticed out of the corner of my eye, she's like pulled out a cigarette. So I reached my pocket and I click. And what I had forgotten was that when I went outside to smoke that big bowl of dope, I had turned up my lighter to about this big to light the bowl, right? And I mean, you remember those remember those Bics? You could just like keep turning and turning and turning, and it would go like that. Well, I had turned it up, and so I go click, and it went poof. And she must have had on like 2 cans of Aquanet or something, man, because her hair just went poof. I mean, I'm oh my God, now like everything goes into slow motion, right? I'm like, oh no. And I'm trying to beat her out, and she's like going, no, and she's trying to beat her out. So we finally get her beat out, right? And she's just sitting there going with like all this hair is still there, right? All that hair is still there, but all this hair is just like poof, it's gone, right? And she's just sitting there going, she's got this little tendril of smoke coming up out of her head. And well, they got their meal comped, okay, and I don't think that he really liked her hair, because he ended up giving me a really huge tip, really huge. You get very good at apologizing when you're a drunk, stoned waiter, right? And I tell that story for a couple of reasons. You guys seem to like it. it's you're very, yeah. And B, and this is honestly the most important lesson of that story, is that absolutely captures me. That is a perfect picture of Barclay in untreated alcoholism. Perfect. I could not come up with a better analogy for me and untreated alcoholism. I stumble through life, right? And I smash into you, and I set you on fire, right? And I go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Holy God, I can't believe, I'm so sorry. God, I feel awful. And I mean it. I absolutely, in the pit of my soul, I mean it. I'm so sorry. I will never do that again. God, I'm sorry. And then I stumble along through life again until I set somebody else on fire. And that's me. That is me in self-centered, active and not active alcoholism, but untreated alcoholism, right? When I am not actively treating my alcoholism, my set point, the thing in, I am selfish and self-centered to the extreme when I am not actively treating my alcoholism, okay? And that's the way I like to drink and do the dope, right? I just like to do it until it hurts me and everybody around me. So when I got in here, oh good, it's 7:30 and we're sober, yay! Okay. Good. So when I got in here, I really, help me out here, God. I'm going to tell you some stuff that I did that was really stupid. Okay. I've been sober. I've now been sober longer than I was alive before I got sober. I got sober when I was 29, and I got sober when I was 29, and I've now been sober for 30 years. So I've been sober longer than I was alive. And I have made, I would say, I've made more mistakes sober in Alcoholics Anonymous than I ever made out there. And I kind of had an excuse then. I was drunk. I didn't mean to set her on fire, right? All the things that I've done in sobriety, the only, and I don't want to say excuse, the only thing I can even, every mistake I've ever made, I made absolutely stone cold and sometimes stark raving sober, right? Now, the first couple of years I was in here, I was willing to go to many lengths. Okay. I got a sponsor my first couple of weeks in AA. He gave me, there used to be this thing, there was a big cassette. There was like 12 cassettes that this guy named Joe Hawk made. There was like a walk through the steps with Joe Hawk. And my first sponsor gave me those 12 cassettes and he said, listen to these with your big book and we'll meet and talk about it every now and then. And I listened to that, and it was a very, very good set of tapes. And they probably have it on CDs now, but it was a very, very helpful walk through the steps. And I did the steps to the best of my ability at that time. I did every step except half of one, okay? And I didn't even know that until at the end of those 2 years, I was absolutely insane. I knew I couldn't drink. I knew I couldn't drink, but I also knew that if this is all you guys have, would somebody please push me in front of a bus? Because this is not happening for me. And God put this guy in my life. His name was Don Roy. And Don Roy saw what my problem was. And my problem was I had done 1 through 3. I knew I couldn't do alcohol. I knew I couldn't do anything else. I knew what the consequences of it were. I mean, my mother and my father and my brother all looked really good right up until the time they died. One of them died of suicide. One of them died in a alcohol-caused car wreck, and one of them just drank himself to death. But we look good until we're dead. So I knew where I was headed. And I did 1 through 3 to the best of my ability. I did 4. I didn't do it the way that I would suggest somebody do it these days, but I did 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I even did 8 and 9, those, amends things that I just went, oh, no. But I did them to the best of my ability. I'm not sure whether I did. I don't know that as I went through the day on step 10 and anyway, but the thing that I know I did not do is it says in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And my sponsor tells me that when I walk through these steps, what happens is my spirit kind of awakens, and my awakened spirit isn't thirsty anymore. And I can get absolutely on board with that. But then right after it says that, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs, right? And I even tried to practice the principles as best I could, right? But I did not sponsor anybody. Like I said, I had a wife, I had a 3-year-old, I had a 6-month-old. somewhere when I got sober. And then there, not long after that, we had another child, and I just said, dude, I don't have time to be sponsoring people. Besides that, I'm just goofy Barclay. I'm just goofy Barclay. Nobody wants to listen to me, right? And truly, that I think to an extent, I believed that, but really what it was is I didn't want to be bothered. It's a bitch having to, people calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning and going, man, I'm in a hotel room. And so I just didn't want to be bothered. It was selfishness and self-centeredness at its core that kept me from sponsoring anybody. So if you're new, and if you're new, please, I am actually, I'm begging you, okay? Because I care about you. If you're new, please do somebody the honor, give somebody the honor and the privilege of asking them to be your sponsor. Because I got to tell you, man, it makes all the difference. And what they're going to tell you is, oh, it does more good for me than it does for you. And if you're like me, you're going to say, oh, I bet you they teach you that at sponsor school. Right? But it's the truth. It's absolutely the truth. It just does something. It takes this program. It takes this program that I'm not an unintelligent guy, right? And I knew all about this program, but until I started teaching it, until I started trying to pass it on, it just didn't infiltrate my soul. It was a mental process that was a cool process, kept me from drinking, right? But it didn't open my soul. If you're relatively new and you're not sponsoring people, please, God, start sponsoring. Or start raising your hand. Start putting your phone number on the chat. Please, please, please do yourself a huge favor. And anyway, so that was kind of my first 2 years, and I can go through. I can go through the actions of what happened or what has happened over the course of my my sobriety. The thumbnail is that I kind of want to just tell you what has happened since, because really what I want to get to is the story of it, the spirit of it, because that's really what's important. Once Don came into my life, I started sponsoring guys, life took on new meaning, I think it says in the big book, right? And life started blossoming, and my marriage got better, and my job got better, and next thing you know, I got another job that I loved, and it was a job that absolutely fed my ego, and it was just wonderful, and I was making all this money, and literally people were applauding me at work. Literally, like, yay, Barclay, yay! And that's yeah, the egotistical alcoholic. That's what I need. So anyway, I started getting further and further away. I didn't drink, but at one day I looked around me and I said, look what I've done. Look at the life that I have built, and I proceeded to burn my life to the ground. I have a thing about fire. I ruined my marriage. I ruined, everything that I had started to hold dear just went away. It went away. And it took a while for the marriage to finally disintegrate. It took years for it to disintegrate, but it did. And but what that experience did for me, and I think I'm just trying to put a positive spin on it, probably. I don't know but what that did is it absolutely forced me to get back to the program, get back to the basics, and it forced me into Scott Lee's lap. And I called up Scott Lee and I said, Scott, dude, I have burned my life to the ground. Will you just take me through the 4-step? And he said, dude, I don't know how to do that. And I went, wait, what are you talking about? You're Scott Lee. You're like Mr. 4th-step. You travel all over the world talking about the 4-step. He said, the only way I know how to do the steps is start at the beginning and go through them. And God kind of tricked me into getting Scott Lee to be my sponsor. And it has been a very, very interesting journey. It really, really has. You know, I want to give you something that Scott tells me to do is to a few stories from my sobriety. I don't know why, but I just kind of get along with people. Some of it, probably the unhealthy part of it is I like people liking me. So, and I can tend toward unhealthy dependencies. But I like people as a general rule. But I was working with this woman that I ended up getting another job, and I was working with this woman, and I just absolutely loathed and despised this woman. And it was absolutely it came right back to me, right? And I would complain to Scott about this woman and just go, she's such a yeah, right? And he said, you know what I want you to do, Barclay? I want you to send her love. You know what I want you to do, Scott? And so I started sending this woman love, right? And really the way that it went was, God, I want you to send this love. Right? And you know, I know she's a you know she's a but I want you to send her love. And so I started sending this love. And truly, that was really all it was. There was no, you know, and about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks later, I don't even remember. It's pretty soon afterward. I'm sitting there and I'm in my van now because I now have a family of 5 people and anyway, and it's raining and I'm about to go inside. I'm on the phone with Scott, and I'm bitching about something I know. And all of a sudden there's a knock on my window and it's raining outside, right? And there's a knock on my van window, right? And I go, hold on a second, Scott. And I look over and with an umbrella, it's the book. it's the book, right? And so I go, well, yep. I go, I open up the window about that much, right? I go, yeah? And she goes, hey, I was just heading over to Donut Den and I wanted to know if you wanted me to pick you up an eclair. And I went, this is a woman who couldn't stand to be in the same room with me, right? I have no idea. All I know is I just sent this woman love. I sent this woman love. I didn't send her love. I asked God to let me be a channel of sending this woman love. Scott does this beautiful meditation called the love meditation. And it is an incredible experience. I know that it works in large groups. I know that it works on CD. If you get a chance to get a CD or a cassette, if you still have a cassette player, okay, or an 8-track, it's spectacular. And I know in my deepest knowing area that that's what it's all about. That's just what it's all about. So, and so today, there's a couple other things that happened. Back in 2008, 2009, there was this thing called the Great Recession, right? The Great Recession. And I had kind of built myself back up to, I made a bunch of money in the TV world, right? And all of a sudden in 2009, in February of 2009, just everything TV wise just went away, period. I didn't work a single day for like 6 months, right? And I mean, all the savings went away, everything went away, and I was just desperate. I was applying for jobs to like write medical things and stuff. I mean, anything. And a friend of mine who was the vice president at this place forwarded me an email and said, just to keep information moving forward, they're looking for a TV teacher at McGavick High School. McGavick High School, right? And McGavick, it's not in the inner city. It's actually kind of in the outskirts. It's out in Donaldson. You guys are in East Tennessee. You probably know. It's in Donaldson, but it serves a very 75, 80% inner city kind of population. You know, it's the poverty rate is out the roof. And I remember growing up in Mount Juliet, it was like McGavick, right? And I thought, God bless, I don't want to be a teacher. Who wants to be a teacher, man? Ugh, right? Have any idea how much those people make, for God's sake? And they have to hang out with teenagers. So, and I talked to Scott about it, and he said, well, you got any other big plans, pal? And I didn't, right? And so we prayed about it, and I sent off, this is on a Thursday night, I sent off this resume, and Friday morning, I get a phone call. Friday around noon, I go in for an interview, and Monday, I started teaching on Monday, right? And it was like, what the? It's like, what? Have you talked to your sponsor about this, right? And I had zero interest in being a teacher, none. But it was, I don't want to make it sound this trite, but it was I was willing to take the next indicated action. And so for about, oh my God, for like the first 2 semesters, I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I'm teaching television, and I literally had a like an old PC from like the late 90s that had like, I don't even know. And I'm trying to teach television, and every day I'm like going, yeah, dun, 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 dun. I'm just making crap up, right? But what happened is that just everything that I tried to do, it just worked. It just worked. And I feel honestly, it was like God forced me to get into the thing that I was supposed to be doing. And what ended up happening, and I'm still kind of uncomfortable talking about this, but I've been told I need to. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with just having the willingness to do the thing that God would have us do. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting like teacher of the year. And I ended up like, the president came to town one time to talk about some education initiative, right? And he came to McGavick High School, and he started talking about one of the students that I had kind of mentored. She was just like me, she smoked pot, and she was late to class, and she was exactly like me. So I knew how to deal with her. I mean, that's how I deal with every class. I treat every class like a big newcomer meeting, right? Because it's the exact same thing. It's like everybody's, they're all full of hormones and self-centered, and it's just ridiculous, right? So anyway, so the president goes, this girl, Sarah Santiago, blah, blah, blah. And then she took a class taught by Barclay Randall. And you know, we need more teachers like Barclay Randall. And I just remember going, oh. And this is a job that I fought with everything I had in me, right? It was like, no, I will not be a teacher. And it was just ridiculous, you know, and the real, help me get this across. I really want to get this across. The soul of this story is, the soul of this story, it doesn't make who, the soul of this story is that it's all about just trusting. And I mean, even when you don't trust, you know, willingness, just willingness to do the next thing. And I honestly feel like, oh, it's 7:53. Yay. Okay. So I'm sorry, 8:53. And the thing is that the way that I enter into every class is exactly the way Scott taught me how to deal with that woman that I could not get along with, is I try. And that's why I love the 12 step is we tried. It gives me permission to screw up all the time in that 12 step. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice. I'm not supposed to be perfect at this. I'm supposed to mess up all the time, but I practice these principles in all my affairs. And it's my gut feeling that the basic principle of all of this stuff is love. And I try and give these kids, I'm looking at my class right now, okay? I try and give these kids love and just meet them where they are and love them, because the vast majority of their problems is they just don't have enough love. And I believe in my heart of hearts, and you guys have taught me, that the most powerful force in the universe is love. It's love. And I love you guys. I really, really do. And I appreciate this opportunity to share. And it's 7:55, and I'm going to shut up now. Thank you.